When the Nothing Phone 1 first came out, it was an interesting addition to the smartphone market that aimed to bring back the early days of smartphone releases, where every new model felt unique and exciting. But a few days ago, Nothing announced the release of the Nothing Phone 2 as a follow up to their previous generation. And from what was announced, it appears we're in for a very solid upgrade over the original. At first glance, the Phone 2 looks very similar to the first iteration, but it has some interesting changes. First off, the black color has been replaced with a dark gray color, and there's a new rounded glass panel on the back to make it feel more ergonomic. Second, the LED glyph system has been divided into segments, each with more lighting zones than before. Supposedly, this will allow for way more control over the individual parts compared to the last generation. The keynote showed off parts of the interface used to show timers, open apps, app-by-app notifications, and even a glyph composer that allows users to create their own series of light pulses and sound effects for things like notifications and ringtones. Its overall functionality appears similar to Apple's live activities in iOS. For example, the keynote explained that if you call an Uber, the lighting system can indicate how close the driver is. Apparently, Nothing is developing the glyph interface for, quote, surface level notifications to show important information while removing distractions. Finally, the front of the phone was updated with slightly thinner bezels and a centered hole punch camera. Not only that, but the internal components have also been upgraded. The mid-range Snapdragon chip from the first generation was upgraded to an 8 Plus Gen 1. Even though that chip was technically the flagship chip from 2021, it should hopefully provide some performance upgrades over the Phone 1. The display also got a major upgrade with the size being increased from 6.55 to 6.7 inches, and it can change its refresh rate from 1 to 120 Hz depending on what you're currently doing. For example, scrolling would up the refresh rate to 120 Hz, while using the always-on display would reduce it to 1 Hz to conserve battery life. Not only that, but its brightness also increased from 700 nits peak brightness to 1600 nits. And all this is done while using 30% less power than before. The battery was upgraded to 4700 mAh compared to 4500, and combined with the new software optimizations and more efficient hardware, it's claimed to result in a 40% increase in battery life over the last generation. It still only has two camera sensors, but the front camera has a new 32 megapixel sensor that's 30% bigger than last year, which should allow for more light to be captured. The main sensor was also upgraded to a newer, faster sensor. But Nothing is also focusing heavily on the software side of photography, with upgraded HDR for more natural photos and updated motion detecting for less blurry images. These upgrades also apply to video as well as photos. So even though the design appears practically the same as before, the new performance upgrades look to be a major step up. While we're talking about software, Nothing is also announcing new features for NothingOS 2.0. During the keynote, Nothing claimed that current mobile operating systems are getting generic and cluttered, and while Nothing originally planned for their software to be a light reskin of Android, they're about to incorporate a significant design overhaul. This redesign will center around new widgets and redesigned app icons, all incorporated to make the experience feel cleaner and more consistent. Specifically, NothingOS 2.0 will introduce widgets that follow the design language and color scheme of Nothing. App icons will follow suit with white backgrounds and black graphics to tie everything together. It seems similar to what Google did with Material U, except everything seems to be monochromatic instead of colorful like with Google's interface. All that being said, the most exciting part of this, in my opinion, is that we're finally getting a US launch. The Phone 1 was only available internationally, so it's great to see Nothing finally expanding into the US market. The Phone 2 is also available for pre-order with the base model costing $600. Overall, it looks to be a much more refined version of the first model, and I'm personally excited to see where it could end up going in the future. This week's question I have for you guys is, will you be pre-ordering the Nothing Phone 2? And what do you consider to be the most exciting upgrade? Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Anyway, just wanted to share that with you guys. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all around. Adios.